So in today's web dev tip, we're going to take a look at some of the shortcuts that you can use while you're using the Chrome developer tools. So let's say you've got a page or an app that you're working on and you're doing some work in the console because you're trying to debug something or just examining a particular site for some reason. One thing that you might do is you might be looking in the elements panel here and just opening up some of the elements to kind of check what's in there and seeing if the right markup's in there, for example. And so you might need to have a reason for accessing those elements on the console. So one thing you can do, or one thing you might be used to doing, is to use the query selector to say, let's get the image or the first image tag that appears on the page. And that's perfectly fine, you can do that. But if you're actually clicking around in here in the elements section, there are some shortcuts that you can use. And the first one I'm going to show you is the $number shortcut, which is basically like a little history of what you've clicked on in the elements panel. So last element I've clicked on here is the image tag itself, that first image tag. So if I say $0, you can see it gives me the exact same image tag that I would have got if I'd have used document.querySelector. And also you can go back in history. I think it's up to 4 you can do this for. So $1 will actually give you the previous element that you clicked on before the image tag. So if I was to then go to the block tag and click on that, and I've now got that in focus, I've now selected it, $0 should be that element that has the block class on it, and then $1 should now be the image. So I've kind of pushed that onto the history, and I can use $0 to 4 to go back to any previous elements that I've clicked on. So that's pretty handy, but obviously you might not have clicked on anything in the elements panel, and you might be using a query selector to find all particular elements on a page. So again, let's do that. Let's say document.querySelector, I'll say all, to get all of the image tags on the page. And that's quite lengthy to type that in each time you want to get that, and obviously you can press up on the keyboard to actually get your previous command. But what if it's listed somewhere else or you've lost that for some reason? Well, what you can do in Chrome on the developer tools is use $_, and that will give you the previous expression that's been evaluated and actually just restore that for you. So it works for anything. So if you did something like 2 + 2, which is equals to 4, you can say $_ and you'll get that previously evaluated expression, and that might just save you a little bit of typing as well. So another thing we can do is actually select elements on the page without using the query selector, and this looks a little bit like jQuery, but it's not jQuery, it's just Chrome's built-in tool here. So if we wanted to get a particular element on the page, we can just use the $sign and then open some parentheses and say use a CSS selector to select an element on the page. So $open parenthesis quotes image will actually give us that first image on the page. And if you want to get multiple elements using a query selector all, for example, then you just use a $, and you can see it gets all of those images on the page in a very similar way that document.querySelector all would. Finally, as well, there is actually an Xpath ability in here. So if you're familiar with Xpath, you can actually say $X, open your parentheses, and then provide an Xpath expression, and it will evaluate that for you on the console as well, which might be useful if you've got a specific Xpath for a page and you want to find some elements on it. You can just use $X, provide the Xpath, and it will evaluate that for you in the console as well. So there you are, there's some shortcuts that you can use if you're inside of the Chrome developer tools. Stay tuned for more web dev tips.